Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this platform by individuals, callers, or invited guests are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with the brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Okay, before I begin, I got to give all praises, and I do mean all praises, to the creator of all, the Ancient of Days, the Holy One of Israel, the Father, Yahweh. His name in the Paleo Hebrew, which means I am, he is, or calls us to be, and we pay homage to his first begotten Son, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Christ Jesus in the English, which means anointed Savior or anointed salvation. And we give a big thank you to our spiritual brothers that's protecting us, the righteous angels. Thanks to my spiritual brothers. And our brother Jude, in his letter, as he puts it, for us to contend for the faith that was once delivered to the saints, as myself and others like me continue this fight and continue to fight for the faith that was once delivered to the saints. Originally, this topic here was, which the brothers still have to prove tonight, is the Masoretic text 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which he do agree that he's going to still try to prove that tonight. Okay? So even though the topic is what Sal said it was, he still agreed, because that was initially the statement that he made while we even here debating. Okay? Now, if he made a mistake, he can simply say he made a mistake or he misspoke, but he never did. Okay? So he's standing on what he said, that the Masoretic text is 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is what he has to prove tonight. Okay? So I'm going to start, because I'm going to show that the Septuagint is closer, measures up closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Masoretic text. Now, the Masoretic text is 1,000 years after, or even more after the Septuagint, and even longer, more than that, than the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Masoretic text is dated around 1000 A.D. Okay, so I don't see how something that's dating around the same time, the Dead Sea Scrolls range anywhere from 250 to 100 B.C. Septuagint will date anywhere from around 200 to 100 B.C. So I don't see how something that's closely dated together around the same time frame, and then you have something that's 1,000 years after, and you're going to say that something 1,000 years after is more closer or measure up closer to something that's dated around the same time frame, which it doesn't make any sense mathematically. Okay. People had thought that the Septuagint was a loose translation of the Hebrew text, because it differs much from the Masoretic text. But when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls and found that it is a translation of a later or a more earlier Hebrew text, they start to change their opinion of it. Okay. Now I want to come on down and show you. I want to come on down and speak on First and Second Samuel's in the Masoretic text. It clearly has a lot of corruptions in it, and it has been corrected by the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls. For example, In 1 Samuel 13:1 in the Masoretic text, it originally read, Saul was a year old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. That's what it originally read in the Masoretic text. It had since been corrected using the Septuagint. You can find the correction in the Septuagint and also in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, showing you that the Septuagint is closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Masoretic text. Also, the Septuagint has Psalms 151 in it. The Masoretic text don't have Psalms 151 in it, but the Dead Sea Scrolls has Psalm 151 in it. Again, showing you that it is, again, closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Masoretic text. It is missing many texts in it. I'm just giving you a few here. And again, the brother has to prove to us that the Masoretic text is 99% accurate or measure up more to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Septuagint. Okay? I just don't show you two already. We're just knocking off that percentage already. Also, when it comes to the reading of the sons of God, when we read in the book, it's even found in the Renewed Testament. In the Renewed Testament of Hebrews chapter 1, verse 6, it talks about them. Paul talks about it there, that let them worship the Messiah. Let all the sons of God worship the Messiah, which you can find this verse here in the Septuagint, and it's also found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, okay? And this, you can find this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Q445 of Deuteronomy 32 and 8. According to the number, this is another one. According to the number of the sons of God, and in the LXX, it's a similar thing. You also have, it will read the angels of God, which is actually the same thing. Okay, but it would read differently in the Masoretic text, and that would read according to the number of the children of Israel again, which is another difference again, showing you that the Septuagint is closer again to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Masoretic text again. Okay. Historical research will reveal 5 significant ways in which the Masoretic text is different from the original Hebrew Old Testament. The Masoretes admit that they receive corrupted text to begin with. They admit this in their writing. The Masoretic text is written with a radically different alphabet than the original Hebrew. Original Hebrew is pictographic. It's a picture of something. Okay? This Assyrian box Hebrew is not a picture of nothing. That's not Hebrew because it's not pictographic. Okay? So they changed the script. All right? When you go into the Dead Sea Scrolls, the majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls is written in Paleo-Hebrew. There is some part of it written in the box Hebrew, showing you that at that time they were starting to transition over to this box Hebrew, but yet the majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls is written in the Paleo-Hebrew, the pictographic Hebrew. Okay? The Masoretes added vowel points which did not exist in the original, which is a violation of Torah. That's an addition. Okay? It clearly says you cannot add to the Torah. Vowel pointings are an addition. Okay? The Masorete text includes several books excluded several books from the Old Testament as well. Certain books in the Apocrypha that they excluded, which is clearly a part of the canon, they excluded. Again, it's a violation of Torah again. Okay, and the Masoretes also changed certain scriptures to try to change prophecy because of the Messiah in the first century as well. All these things they have done and have corrupted the text. So it's clearly a corruption. They admitted that they received a corrupted text, and that's why they went to the length of trying to preserve what they had so they don't repeat the mistakes that they had received but yet they never went to go correct the mistake that they had received, even though they acknowledged that they had received texts that were corrupted. So they preserved a corrupted text that they had received, and then we need to use the Septuagint to correct it and the Dead Sea Scrolls. So again, there is no way that it can be closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls when for years they've been using the Septuagint to correct the Masoretic text and the stuff that they were saying that was wrong. Okay? The Masoretic text is also missing a line, a verse, a whole verse in Psalms 145. When you look at Psalms 145, it is actually missing the entire verse because the Psalms has the Hebrew lettering there in the beginning of each verse, and then the nun or the na is missing in the Masoretic text, but you can clearly find it in the Septuagint, and it is also in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. And this verse actually reads, that's missing in the Masoretic text. It reads, the Lord is faithful in his words and holy in all his works. That's missing from the Masoretic text. Clearly, that's deliberate. There's no way they can see the numbering of the letters there and see when it comes to none and it's missing, and they just continue to just copy it without trying to go ahead and find what's missing there, the missing Hebrew letter. So they have deliberately, in certain places, left corruptions in, knowing that it's a corruption that something is missing, and preserved it that way as well. They have also admitted to changing the Most High's name in 134 places, changing it to Adonai. They admit that they did this in some form of misplaced reverence for the Most High name, to say that they're trying to preserve his name so you don't take his name in vain, which is definitely misplaced because the Torah says they want you to speak his name. Okay, it said don't take his name in vain. It never told nobody to hide his name in some kind of misplaced reverence for him. That's men doing that on their own. Okay. That's not found nowhere in the Septuagint. It is there. It is just translated into Greek, but it's still, they're not trying to hide the name. It's just the name in Greek. All right? So clearly, once again, we see that the Masoretic text is constantly changing, taking things out, violating Torah, and the Septuagint have verses in there that matches up with the Dead Sea Scrolls. So these things is proven. There is no way that the Masoretic text can measure up closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Septuagint, but all the things I brought out just now. Again, they have changed.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, 12 minutes is up. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You. This is the Lions Den segment right here on Debate Talk for You Radio. The number to call in is 319-527-6239. That's 319-527-6239. Put it on speed dial because later on we're going to hear from the audience out there during the public Q&A portion of the show where you can call in by dialing that number and pressing number 1 so we can hear what you guys got to say. But for now, we're still in the opening statement part of this debate. We're going to go now to Eylon Yisrael. He has 12 minutes each. Let me open up his phone line and go ahead.
Bashem Hashem El Olam, in the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, God of the Infinite. First, like to give honor to my Creator, this transcendent one, the omnipresent one, Yah, the Holy One of Israel, who is most holy and whose name is holy, and who thought it necessary to transmit the gift of his holy Torah through the prophet Moshe, our teacher, peace be upon him. I would also like to give honor to my earthly creators, my father and my mother, for without them, you, listening audience, would not be able to receive the information you will hear tonight. As for who I am, I'm a Hebrew, and I feared Yod, He, Wah, and He, the Eloah of heaven, who has made the sea and the dry land. Also at the bear, as Yod, He, Wah, He lives. What my Eloah says, that is what I will speak. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, my rock and my redeemer. I have to say here in my opening statement that Hebrews, Israelites, and even Jews don't ever debate the validity of the Septuagint that you buy off of Amazon today. It is only Christians and so-called Messianics that, when pressured into a corner, they revert to the Septuagint because they believe that their gospel comic book heroes are quoting from the Septuagint that you buy on eBay. Yehudim have already come to the conclusion that we should speak Hebrew, and that we have a unique connection with our scriptures, history, culture, and traditions. People who claim to be Hebrews and for whatever reason seem to be intimately involved with the Christian God, they are the ones who make such claims against Hebraic writings and traditions such as the Masoretic text in order to keep you on a carousel going round and round and to never actually fulfill what is plainly written in the Holy Torah. The only people who come against Masoretic texts are the Messianics, who don't like the fact that the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic text both translate in a way that excludes and does away with their idol, JC. Christians use this argument because they are always reaching to try and justify their convoluted beliefs. But no Israelite, Jew, or anyone who follows the Holy Mikra ever use the Septuagint as a basis for any argument, because you will find out tonight that it is completely and utterly ridiculous. My opponent has what you might call a confirmation bias, which means he's never going to search out both sides of a matter, although the Holy Mikra states emphatically that it is the honor of kings to search out a matter. And the Creator says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because you reject knowledge, you will not be a priest to me. That being said, when we compare the Septuagint to the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is absolutely no comparison. Because, number one, you're dealing with a translation of a translation of a translation. The Greek Septuagint that you buy online is in English, which was translated from Greek, which in turn was translated from the Latin Vulgate, which I'll prove later. How can you compare what is corrupted with what is holy and just? The fact of the matter, like my opponent stated, and I stand by this, is that the Masoretic text is 99% identical with the consonantal text of the Dead Sea Scrolls, meaning it is virtually identical when you're talking about the letters themselves. The only difference with the Masoretic text is that we have punctuation, vowel pointing, and cantillation markings to preserve the original pronunciation of the Hebrew script well before we started using the Aramaic script or the Ashuri script. Vowel pointing is historically used in developing languages, especially those of the Middle East. Not only does Hebrew have particular markings, so does Arabic and Aramaic. Hebrew was only one of the latest to adopt such a system in order to preserve the original intended meaning of our text throughout our diaspora. The question isn't whether or not we can rely on the Masoretic texts, because both the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic text translate and read exactly the same way, because when you look at the Hebrew, which he didn't quote any Hebrew, he only used English, by the way, because in fact they are 99% identical. The question should be, can we rely on the Septuagint that is available today, which was published and poorly preserved by the church? I have a number of points that I would like to reiterate throughout the course of tonight's debate. The first being that the original Targum Shiv'im, the original translation of the 70, was only the first 5 books and had commentary and notes to go along with it, just like we see in the Masoretic text and the Aramaic translations of the Mikra and the Torah. Where are these notes? They're not in your Septuagint you buy off of Amazon. Again, because the original 5-book Septuagint that took only 70 days to make has been lost in antiquity. If you own the original Septuagint, you're a very rich person, because I'm telling you, it does not exist. Also, Koine Greek is not superior to Hebrew. The Dead Sea Scrolls prove that we preserve the consonantal text of Hebrew. The Creator never spoke in Greek to the nation of Israel through any prophet at any time. Next, we know that no one in the history of Israel has ever used a Greek Torah scroll for any worship service. Open up any Septuagint, and the introduction will tell you that it is not the original Septuagint. The rabbis themselves called the day that it was translated a cursed day and declared a fast. No Hebrews were ever present at any Roman councils when the Christians put together their Septuagint Bible. The so-called Septuagint we have today does not have any scribbled notes or commentary, like I said before, which every rabbinical translation has. The Septuagint we have today also changed the order of the books. And if we're going to talk about books being added and not added, remember, the original Mikra was compiled in 450 BC, although it wasn't available to the public at large. It was decided on 500 years before the first Gospels were written and 1,000 years before Rome canonized the Christian Bible. This means that the apocryphal books would not have even be included because they came later. But my opponent wants you to trust the rabbis who wrote the original Septuagint, which we don't have a copy of today, but he doesn't want you to trust the rabbis who standardized the vowel pointing of the Masoretic text. But what's really going on here is that subliminally, he wants you to accept his 1877 version of the Hebrew New Testament by Franz Delch, a Lutheran Christian, whose motives were to convert Jews, Yehudim, Hebrews to Christianity, and for you to use today's Septuagint, which was translated by Sir Lancelot Brinton, who was ordained by the Church of England. You can't make up these names. So, anyways, he wants you to use Sir Lancelot Brinton's translation in place of the Hebrew Tanakh. How backwards, how unlearned, and how uncultured to be itching for any way to legitimize his belief in the Christian God. Only a Greek would tell you that Greek is superior to Hebrew, because we know that an Edomite's allegiance is to Rome first and not the nation of Israel. Christians and Messianics will go at all lengths to keep you in idolatry. So what they do is make up claims in order to try and prove their weak arguments. But none of their scholars will actually put both the Masoretic text and the Dead Sea Scrolls side by side and show you if there's any consistencies in the Hebrew, because most of them can't read Hebrew. And if they happen to show you the Hebrew, the church would lose its power over you, and you would also have to reject all the church's writings, including the New Testament. Until they do this, you, as well as my opponent, are expected to simply obey the church and their missionaries without any proof and cling on to the Septuagint and the New Testament. And when you have to trust them, and then you have to trust them when they say that you're an Israelite or grafted into the covenant somehow. But what really happened was that you got tired of your previous pastor, painted J.C. black, and started going to church on Saturday. This does not make you an Israelite. All you did was become a part of some thugged out Christian Seventh-day Adventist sect where these unlearned base-level teachers, and you truly never got off the Christian merry-go-round. True Israelites know how to read actual Torah Hebrew scrolls without any vowels. And we do it every Shabbat morning because we are instructed to make all of our Torah scrolls without vowels. Again, the Masoretic text only preserves the grammar and syntax of how to pronounce, punctuate, and chant the text. It's a training aid that preserves the original Masorah or tradition of Hebrew so that when we make an aliyah to the Torah, we are fully prepared to fulfill the mitzvah, or the commandment of reading from a Torah scroll, as it says in Devarim or Deuteronomy 31:10-13. Every Hebrew family, or at the very least, each community throughout time has had their own Torah scroll. Every king had to write 2 Torah scrolls. Moshe Rabbeinu Alau Shalom, he wrote 13. And when did JC write his Torah scroll, since he was supposed to be a king? Never mind. All he did was read it. But if he existed, I'm sure he would have been reading a Hebrew Torah scroll and not some Alexandrian codename Greek. And Christians and Messianics are told to walk even as he walked, if he existed. But it turns out that Christianity and Messianics are the only religion on earth where no one actually follows anything their own book says to do. Your Messiah rabbi said to have gone up, as was his custom on the Shabbat day, to read the scriptures. Again, there are no vowels in any kosher Torah scroll. So you would have to read all the vowels from memory. But since your rabbi left you no instructions on how to perform one of the biggest commandments, why not just use the Masoretic text as a simple tool to remember how to pronounce the words? Because again, what the Masoretes did was preserve the proper pronunciation, punctuation of proper vowels that are supposed to be supplied to the consonantal Hebrew text.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Hey, family, once again, the number is 319-527-6239. To Debate Talk Free Radio. Title of this debate: which one measures up better to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the LXX or the MS? Debating this topic is Ahmayan versus Eylon Yisrael. So we're going into the first rebuttal part of this debate. That's going to be 10 minutes each. We're going back to Ahmayan. Open up his phone line and go ahead.
All right, thank you, Sal. Now, I didn't hear anything that proves that the Masoretic text is 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, first of all, the majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls is written in Paleo-Hebrew. And even when it's using that box Hebrew, there's no vowel pointings in the box Hebrew that it uses. The Masoretic text, on the other hand, all of it has all of these vowel pointings in it. So how can it measure up 99%? There's a big difference. All those vowel pointings right there rules that out immediately. That's the first thing that is not the same thing as well, okay? And then they admitted to changing, by adding vowel pointing, they changed God's name as well, changing his name to Adonai. In the Dead Sea Scrolls and in Paleo-Hebrew, even when they use the box Hebrew script, when you look at it, they keep God's name in Paleo-Hebrew. You can look at it for yourself, okay? When you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls in this box Hebrew script, when it comes to the Most High's name, they keep it in Paleo-Hebrew. These are facts, okay? So why didn't the Masoretes do that by using this script? Why did they change it to Adonai with their vowel pointings? That's 2 points already. I'm showing you that it is not 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Clearly false, okay? That proves him wrong immediately. He makes a claim, again, like he did last time when we talked behind the scenes, that God never spoke to his people in Greek, is what he's saying, okay? I'm going to read out the Bible again. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use his Masoretic text to prove him wrong, okay? We come to Isaiah chapter 28, verse 11. Unless he's going to come and say that in the Hebrew, it don't say this. Here's what it says. For with stammering lips and another tongue, that's another language, will he, that's the Most High, speak to this people clearly. Israel was dispersed all over the world, okay? Dispersed all over. The northern kingdom has been dispersed all over, okay? Most of the southern kingdom, Judah, stayed in Babylon, okay? They were dispersed all over, okay? So at this time, Greek was the lingua franca, all right? So clearly, that's one of the reasons why Israelites came down and they had translated the Hebrew text into Greek, because you have so many Israelites that lived in Egypt and dispersed abroad that spoke Greek. That's one of the reasons why they even did it. If what he's saying is true, then these men that translated would have been like, no, we cannot do that. Okay? They would know this. Plus, these men know more of the Torah than Eylon does. He's talking about Sir Lancelot, the guy that translated it. Sir Lancelot knows more Hebrew than Eylon does. What is he talking about? That's why he can translate it. Eylon cannot translate completely at all from one language to another language. He can't do that. He's talking about a man that did something like that. And he used the Septuagint. He used that over the Masoretic text, and he also used, when you look at it, he also used the Renewed Testament over the Masoretic text when he's translated things and bringing it back to the original Hebrew. Because he knew that the Masoretic text was corrupted. Okay? So I show you again, even he knew it. All right? Now, he brought up the Masorah. I know most people don't know what the Masorah is. Okay? The Masorah, they call it a fence around the Torah. On each manuscript page, or for each verse in a book, they put a fence. They call it a fence around the page, and in this fence, it's actually writing, but it's like a fence around the chapter. And in there, they tell you which Hebrew letter is in the middle, which one is the end, which one is the first, and they also tell you that they changed God's name as well in the Masorah. You don't see it in your Bible because they're taking it out. But if you look at the Masoretic text, you would see this writing around the verses, the chapters. They call it the Masorah. They call it the fence around the Torah. But they're telling you that how they change the text. Not once have Eylon refuted. I guess we have two more rounds to go after me. I want him to refute that they didn't change God's name. I want him to refute that the original Dead Sea Scrolls of the Aramaic script don't have vowel pointings in it, and it also preserves God's name in the Hebrew in it. So clearly there's a difference. I want him to refute these things, okay, and refute that Sir Lancelot did not use the Renewed Testament when quoting the Old Testament over the Masoretic text, because he knew that they was using an older script, older than the Masoretic text. That's why he relied on them and the Septuagint over the Masoretic text. I want him to refute those things when he get back on, if he can. Okay? And again, going back to the text of the Hebrew, he keep calling this Assyrian script Hebrew. That's not Hebrew, bro. Hebrew is pictographic. You should know that. It started with hieroglyph going way back with Moses. Okay? It was actually the picture of the thing there. And from that point in time of Samuel, it went into the Paleo-Hebrew. Okay? Then after they went to Babylon and came back, then you see this corruption coming in with this Assyrian script, which is not pictographic. Brother, that's not Hebrew. You keep calling that Hebrew. That's not Hebrew. Okay? And the people in BC that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls didn't need vowel pointings to preserve the pronunciation of the words. They didn't need that. So why is the Masorite thinking that they need that when for hundreds of years it was never needed? So how come all of a sudden, 1,000 years later, these Masorites are trying to say that how we need some vowel pointing to preserve something when all the time before that they didn't need it? Because these men are adding to the word of God. They're violating Torah. He's trying to argue for something that violates the word of God. The word of God do not condone vowel pointings. It does not condone you changing the script. It does not condone you changing the Most High's name. All that is a violation of Torah. See, he really wants to attack the Renewed Testament in Christ, but he can't. He has no valid argument against the Renewed Testament, not one. I've asked him to bring up something valid, and he actually had nothing to bring up. He actually went to go misquote Christ, and I had to correct him. Okay? And when I corrected him, that's when he said this nonsense about the Masoretic text is 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which I said, that's a lie. I said, let's debate that. And he agreed to that. Okay, he agreed to that, right? But then he came later and said he doesn't have enough wiggle room to really argue that point. So me being a follower of the Messiah of the Renewed Testament, I accommodated him, following the principles of the man in the man in the Renewed Testament, the Messiah, that teach us like that. Okay? It's because of Christ that I accommodated him, the same person he's trying to attack. And that's why he had this heading we have today. Because I'm using the Messiah's principles, why I even accommodated him, because he was locked into one debate of proving this Masoretic script, which he has not proven it yet. He's still trying to attack Christ, and he hasn't brought no proof yet. Brother, please prove to us that this text is 99% accurate to Dead Sea Scrolls. Stop trying to attack Christ because you have no angle against him or the Renewed Testament. Prove according to this debate that we have here going on, because you're not doing that. Still trying to attack Christ, and you can't attack him. He's far above you, bro. And with that, shalom.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right, family, this reminder, you can call in, guys. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. Simply press number 1 if you have any questions or comments for my special guest that's on the panel right here on Debate Talk Radio. By the way, quick plug, next week, Friday, we have a show right on Debate Talk Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's called Fact Check. This is going to be actually Fact Check Volume 7, and the title of this show is Fact Check Volume 7, Defend Your Words. We're going to have Yehuda Ben Yisrael back on the program. He did a show, a hot seat actually, last week. And Messenger of Truth is going to actually question Yehuda Ben Yisrael right here on the Fact Check segment, Volume 7. That's why it's entitled Defend Your Words. So make sure you be here next week, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out Fact Check Volume 7, Defend Your Words. We're going to have Yehuda Ben Yisrael versus Messenger of Truth. Different, format, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great one. So make sure you tune in. I'll be going to Eylon Yisrael once again. We're going to go to him for his first rebuttal part of this debate. That's going to be 10 minutes each. Eylon, take it away.
All right, so let's go ahead and get down to business. So before I prove that the text, the Dead Sea Scrolls, are 99% identical to the Masoretic text, let's clear up some things about Ibrith. Number one, Paleo-Hebrew is an accepted form of writing Ibrith, writing Hebrew. The issue is that when we came out of Babylon, most of the Israelites, Yehudim at that time, were tainted with Assyrian or Babylonian languages. So what Ezra HaSofer, Ezra the scribe, did was standardize a transliteration. We're using the Ashuri script today, which is a transliteration of the Paleo-Hebrew text. That's why later on, when we're no longer a nation and we became dispersed, that the need arose for us to write down our oral traditions. We use the same punctuation in translating Arabic, Aramaic, and Yiddish, and even other modern languages today with this same standardized text. He quoted Isaiah 28:11 and says that means Greek when the text never says that with stammering lips, I will speak to this people in Greek. It never says that. Again, at the time of the prophet Yeshaya, peace be upon him, the lingua franca was Aramaic. This was his prophecy about the Babylonian exile. And it also proves my point again, is that the stammering lips we're talking about is Aramaic, which was everybody was talking when we returned from that exile. He talked about Psalm 145, not having the noon. This is a highly contested verse, but our tradition states that it doesn't exist in the original in the original because it had more of a negative connotation if you would include a verse that had the noon. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were not preserved by the mainstream Yehudim. They were kind of preserved by a shoot-off sect. And we believe that they may have added that in there, but be that as it may, Psalm 25 and Psalm 34 also have acrostic alphabetizing listings. And in those two verses, or two chapters, Psalm 25 and 34, it doesn't follow the alphabet in that manner at all. So, do your own research on that. But after years of careful study, it has been concluded that the Dead Sea Scrolls give substantial confirmation that the Holy Mikra, or the Tanakh, has been accurately preserved. The scrolls were found to be almost identical with the Masoretic text. Here are some quotes from actual archaeologists and scholars who examined and compared the Dead Sea Scrolls with the Masoretic text. Again, my opponent's not going to compare with you the Hebrew to the Hebrew or the Paleo to the Ashuri script. He's not going to do that. But Yigael Yadin, an Israeli archaeologist, says a great importance of the, and I quote, the great importance of the antiquity of the Dead Sea Scrolls therefore lies in the fact that they belong to the period in which no standardization of the Holy Scriptures had been effected. This is at once obvious by comparing the text of the scrolls with that of the translations on the one hand and the Masorah on the other. What is astonishing is that despite their antiquity and the fact that the scrolls belong to this pre-standardization period, they are on the whole almost identical with the Masoretic text known to us. William F. Albright, American archaeologist, says, we may rest assured that the consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible, though not infallible, has been preserved with an accuracy perhaps unparalleled in any other Near Eastern literature. Edwin Demucci, a Japanese-American historian, says, thanks to Qumran, we know that the Masoretic text goes back to a Proto-Masoretic or Proto-Masoretic edition antedating the Christian era, and we are assured that this recension was copied with remarkable accuracy. This means that the consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible must be treated with respect and not freely amended. Miller Burroughs, a Hebrew scholar, says, it is a matter of wonder that through something like 1,000 years, like I stated in my opening statement, the text underwent so little alteration. As I said in my first article on the scroll, herein lies its chief importance, supporting the fidelity of the Masoretic tradition. So far, I've quoted one Israeli and three Christians who say this, three people who believe in the New Testament. Again, we have a Masorah. How can you translate Hebrew at all unless there is a established tradition with the people who actually know the language? And believe me, it ain't this cowabunga, you wishy-washy, ninja turtle Hebrew these imposters on the street made up in the 1960s. To continue, Gleason Archer, another Christian biblical scholar, says even though the two copies of Isaiah discovered at Qumran, he's talking specifically about the scroll of Isaiah, were discovered in Qumran Cave near one, the Dead Sea, 1947, were 1,000 years older than the oldest dated manuscript previously known. They proved to be word for word identical with our standard Hebrew Bible in more than 95% of the text. The 5% variation consisted chiefly of obvious slips of the pen and variations in spelling. For those of us who actually read Hebrew, we know that there's the long spelling of a word and the defective or abbreviated form of spelling certain words. This doesn't change the meaning of the word or its interpretation, especially knowing that the Masoretic text only seeks to preserve the tradition of pronunciation and grammar. So I still stand with my initial comment on the Dead Sea Scrolls being 99% identical with the Masoretic text. Because between these two texts, we never lose the intended meaning or interpretation. And in terms of the name of the Creator, the only thing that is different in there are the vowel pointings underneath the name of the Creator, depending on where you might be in chanting the text. You might have the vowel pointings for Elohim, or you might have the vowel pointings for Adonai, but the consonantal text, Yod, He, and Wa, and He, it's still there. It does not change. It's always been there and does not change. When we read it, we say Adonai in our tradition, but when we teach it, we say Yod, He, Wa, He. And the tradition of the priests and the elders is that once a year, it would be the priest, the high priest of Israel, who would actually utter the name of the Most High during Sukkot as we march around 7 times around the Holy Temple. Archer Gleason goes on to say, in conclusion, we should accord the Masoretes the highest praise. This is the Christian who believes in the New Testament, for their meticulous care in preserving I can't even read their words, sedulously, the consonantal text of the Sopharim, which had been entrusted to them. They, together with the Sopharim themselves, gave the most diligent attention to the accurate preservation of the Hebrew Scriptures that has ever been devoted to any ancient literature, secular or religious, in the history of human civilization. These bring us very close in all essentials to the original autographs themselves and furnish us with an authentic record of God's revelation. I have to remind everyone in the listening audience of the following points. No Hebrews were present at any Roman councils when the Christians put together their Bible. The so-called Septuagint we have today does not have any scribbled notes or commentary, which every rabbinical translation has. If you want you to trust the rabbis of 1,000 years before the Masoretic text, why can't you trust the rabbis now? Next, the Septuagint we have today changed the original order of the books. The original order is not what you see in your King James Bible. And what entered the writers of the Septuagint's mind to include the book of Esther? Because the book of Esther wasn't found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. So where did they get this idea, or even a copy of the scroll of Esther, to even include in the Septuagint? Something to ponder. Another tradition is that they found phylacteries or tefillin that Yehudi men wear around their arm and their head. Another oral tradition. They found these at the caves of Qumran along with the scrolls.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, family. Once again, you're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio. That number to call in, 319-527-669. Again, if you know you're going to have a question or a comment, if you're already on the phone line, simply press number 1 and stand by for the public Q&A portion of the show. We'd love to hear from the family out there. You can also email me at debatetalku@gmail.com. That's debatetalk, the number 4, letter U, @gmail.com, and I'll gladly read out your questions or your comments to the special guest during the public Q&A portion of the show. And the chat room is officially open, guys. That's right. The chat room is officially open to gain access. If you're on social media, all you got to do is click on the link and scroll down at the bottom. You're going to see a little square box there where you can interact with me or anyone that's inside the chat room. Once again, I'll read out your questions or your comments later on. So let's go to the second part of this debate. That's going to be 8 minutes each. We're going back to Ahmayan. You can go ahead.
All right, thank you, Sal. Man, this is sad, bro. You know, he went back to Isaiah, the scripture I pulled, and he said that stammering lips was Aramaic. But it goes on, it says, and another tongue. So if stammering lips is this Aramaic script, it also talks about another, it says, and another tongue, another language again. Again, that proves it wrong again. Now, he's quoting all these Christians. None of them never says 99%. When he did bring up a percentage, it was 95. It wasn't 99 again. So again, he still is not proving it's 99%. His own words is proving to him that he lied. Okay? None of them says it's 99%. He said 95. Brother, I don't know if you know math, but 95 is not 99. I don't know if you know that, but it's just not. How can it? I was crazy for even saying something like that. That he talks about how the Septuagint changed the order. Okay, so what's worse, changing the order or actually changing the text? Which one is worse? Changing the text is actually worse. I'm showing you that they actually changed the text, and they used the Septuagint to correct the text he's talking about. He's not disputing these things. How are you attacking something that they used to correct your text that you stand on? That means it's superior to the one you stand on because they used it to correct the text you stand on. The corruptions that's in it. That's just, I don't know, anyway, that's just common sense to me. He goes to try to attack the One West Hebrew that we speak today and claiming that that's not Hebrew, okay? He obviously don't know about superlinear or above the line vowel pointings. These vowel pointings here, they predate the vowel pointings in the Masoretic text. Superlinear or above the line vowel pointings, they predate this Masoretic text vowel pointings. And in the superlinear above the line vowel pointing, when you go study it, it tells you that the Hebrew letters was as we are pronouncing it today. That comes from the One West. It's A, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za. Learn some real Hebrew, brother. Ha, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Pa, Taza, Kwa, Ra, Sha, Tha. Eylon, those superlinear above the line vowel pointing tells you that's how it was pronounced. Okay? Look it up for yourself. Not that nonsense you're talking about. Okay? These vowel pointings, again, predate the Masoretic text making up this system of vowel pointing, claiming to preserve the text. They were preserving corruption. How do you know you have a corrupted text? You preserve the corrupted text, and at no time do you go back and go correct it. That don't make no sense at all. And you come and you trying to stand on something that you admit in your last round that there's mistakes in it. You admit that. And you're attacking the Septuagint and talking about it's something that's been translated from Latin and all that stuff. Come on, bro. Okay? We all know, I'm speaking of the one that was in the BC. Okay? That's the one we're talking about here. All right? And that's the one that's closer to the one that we have today as well. I've never claimed that we have the original Septuagint. I've never said that. But the one that we do have today is, again, still closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls, Daniel Masoretic text that you're talking about. Again, I'm still waiting for you to prove what you're saying. You still have not proved anything. Back to the text, brother. Please explain to us in the Masoretic text why in there does it say in 1 Samuel 13:1 that Saul was a year old when he began to reign? Can you defend that? Can you please defend that? Why the text you stand on originally it says in there that Saul was only 1 year old when he reigned? Does that make any sense to you? Are you standing on that? Okay, that's a corruption. Are you going to stay with the corruption? Because it seems like you are. I want to come here also again and show you more corruption in the text. When you come to the book of Exodus chapter 12, and when Israel is coming out of Egypt, Exodus chapter 12, verse 40, it says, "Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. That's the Masoretic text. Now, when you read the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint, it adds in there, it says, and Canaan. Not only in Egypt, the 430 years also is included when Abraham came into Canaan as well. That's where it started from. It isn't just in Egypt. Because when you read in Exodus chapter 6, it gives you the lineage there. Even if you have to add up the years of the people there, they still don't reach to 430 years. You get about 350 when you add it up. So the Masoretic text is a witness against itself that it is corrupted, because the lineage tell you that it couldn't have been 430 years in Egypt. So come on, bro, you can't be serious. So I mean, what he's talking about the Hebrew lettering. First of all, that's crazy, because the script, again, brother, that's not Hebrew. I don't know what's wrong with you. You keep talking about this Assyrian script is Hebrew. That's not Hebrew. Hebrew is pictographic. Please show me any letter of this script that's a picture of what? A picture of what? Ain't a picture of nothing. So it can't be Hebrew. Hebrew is pictographic. So stop calling it Hebrew. That's not Hebrew, brother. That's a corruption, font, a corruption language. That's not Hebrew, bro. Okay? You cannot prove to us that that's pictographic, because it's not. All right? That showed you they was being corrupted by outside influence and being pressured to change their script into something that's not Hebrew. Okay? So stop trying to claim that these rabbis was preserving Hebrew. They didn't preserve the Hebrew language. They preserved a different language. Okay? I'm constantly proving that they're changing the text, changing God's name. Okay? They're using the Septuagint to correct the text he stand on. How does he have a leg to stand on? He can't prove that this Masoretic corruption is 99% accurate. The Dead Sea Scrolls, not one time has he ever showed it. He's quoting people that never says this. They saying almost, close, over here. But still, brother, it is not 99% with the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're still waiting. And please, stop trying to attack one West Hebrew, because you can't. Because you don't know above-the-line vowel pointings. You don't even know what those things is. And those things prove you wrong, that the Hebrew we speaking is the Hebrew that they spoke before they got.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right, family. Hopefully you got your pen and pads ready, taking down those notes. Like I always say, take down those notes from both sides, not just one, from both sides. Or at the end of the debate, you call in and get your, ask your questions, and hopefully you do your research and get some understanding. But we're going to go now to Alone. Again, we're in the second rebuttal part of this debate. This is going to be 8 minutes each. So we open up his phone line and go ahead.
All right. So let's actually read the Hebrew of 1 Samuel and chapter 13. This Ben Shana Shu'ul B'Molcho Ushte Shnim Malach Al Yisrael. So Shaul was a year in his reign. The King James Version says, which comes from the Masoretic text, says that Shaul Saul reigned for 1 year. So it lines up fine with the Hebrew. There's really no issues with that whatsoever. He talks about above the line vowel pointing. Well, what's your source? Number one, for your Cowabunga Hebrew, and what is the One West source for that? Because it only shows up in 1960. It doesn't show up anywhere before that. Going back to Isaiah, chapter 28, I'm very clear and I'm very particular with my words. I said that Aramaic was the lingua franca of the day. I didn't say that Isaiah 28 and 11 was written in Aramaic. the stammering lips and another tongue that the Most High would speak to them would be the language that they would come across when they went to Babylon. Again, if you know the prophets, you know a little bit of Hebrew, you will know that the prophet Yeshaya, Lao Shalom, peace be upon him, that he was prophesying about the Babylonian captivity, not the Greek captivity whatsoever. Again, it bolsters my argument because we all came back speaking Assyrian, and all that we see today with the blocked Ashuri script, as opposed to the Hebrew script, the original Paleo-Hebrew script, is simply a transliteration of what Hebrew would have sounded like if it had vowel pointings in this particular transliterated text. So let's go on and prove that the Septuagint, the original Septuagint was only the first 5 books. I still stand by my comment. This is my scholarly remark. I'm basing my scholarly remark off of experience and off of what other scholars have said. One scholar said 95%. Other scholars said they were completely identical. So I didn't go as far as say 100% identical. But with my own educated guess, I still stand by my original statement. And I proved with plenty of other outside resources and scholars and archaeologists that my assertion is still in the realm of scholastic ability. Open up any Septuagint that you have today, and the introduction will tell you that it is not the original Septuagint. It's funny because my opponent has already conceded this, which is great. But I have to also prove that it wasn't the entirety of the Hebrew Scriptures. Because Sir Lancelot, let me guess, he was a Hebrew, right? In his 1844 preface to the Septuagint, says the Jews of Alexandria, whether by King Ptolemy's command or of their own accord, translated a portion of their scriptures into Greek. This portion, which I'm going to explain later, is the Torah, when completed, was referenced to the Jewish Sanhedrin at Alexandria and was revised and reproved by them, which circumstances probably led the real origin of the name Septuagint. The remaining part of the translation of the so-called Old Testament was executed at different periods, and a wide diversity of style would lead us to suppose by different hands than those of the Jews. The translation has been made from the Vatican text. I quote, the translation that you guys have in your hands of the Septuagint was made from the Vatican text, according to the preface given by Sir Lancelot, with occasional insertion of Alexandrian reading in the notes. Josephus, in his book of the Antiquities of the Jews, Book 7, Chapter 2, verses 5 and 13. When the epistle was sent to King Ptolemy, he commanded that an epistle should be drawn up for Eleazar, the Jewish high priest, concerning these matters, and that they should inform him of the release of the Jews that had been in slavery among them. So this is telling us that we did not want to do this freely, the rabbis at that time. And as continuing, and as I am desirous to do what will be grateful to these and to all the other Jews in the inhabitable earth, I have determined to procure an interpretation of your law. What is law? In Hebrew, Torah. And to have it translated out of Hebrew into Greek and to be reposited into my library. Thou wilt therefore do well to choose out and send me men of good character who are now elders in age, and 6 in number out of every tribe. Now when the law, the Torah, was transcribed and the labor of interpretation was over, which came to its conclusion in 72 days, Demetrius gathered all the Jews together to the place where the laws were translated and where the interpreters were, and read them over. The multitude did also approve of those elders that were interpreters of the law. Also, in a note in Antiquities of the Jews, it says that Josephus never followed the Septuagint nor any Greek version in his antiquities or other works, but only the Hebrew original. And so this punctuality throughout all his known writings is to make use of none of the sacred books, but those that were written in Hebrew and belong to the Jerusalem catalog. St. Jerome, a church father and Bible translator, could hardly be construed as a friend to the faith, affirms Josephus' statement regarding the authorship of the Septuagint in his preface to the book of the Hebrew Questions. The letter of Aristia from 200 BC, verse 8 says, I have determined that your law shall be translated from the Hebrew tongue, which is amongst you in 39, that's the verse page, 38 and 39, into the Greek language. The Anchor Bible Dictionary says the word Septuagint from the Latin Septuaginta. Hence, the abbreviation LXX derives from a story that 72 elders translated the Pentateuch into Greek. The term therefore applied originally only to those 5 books. F.F. Bruce in the books and the parchments. The Jews might have gone on at a later time to authorize a standard text for the rest of the Septuagint, but lost interest in the Septuagint altogether. But with few exceptions, every manuscript of the Septuagint which has come down to our day was copied and preserved in Christian, not Jewish or Hebrew circles. My question is, how can you claim?
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, family. We in the third and final rebuttal part of this debate, and after this, we're going to have the cross-examination part of this debate where both opponents have prepared some questions to ask each other. If you just tuned in, today's show is entitled, Which One Measures Up Better to the Dead Sea Scrolls, LXX or the MS? My special guest debating, Ahmayan versus Bone. The number to call in, again, if you have any questions live, the number is 319-527-6239. If you're already on the phone line, simply press number 1 and stand by for the public Q&A. We're going to go down the line and get some of your questions. We'd like to hear from the people out there. But let's get into the third and final rebuttal part of this debate. Again, it's going to be 8 minutes each. Back to Ahmayan. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Sal. He said that this is basically his assertion. Now, an assertion is something that you put forth without providing any evidence, and that's what he's doing tonight. He's making claims, but he ain't provided single evidence to prove that this Masoretic text is 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. What evidence had he showed? He named 95. Again, 95 is not 99. Where's the evidence at? So an assertion is just something that you believe. That's basically what it would boil down to, because he has not provided no evidence for his assertion. Okay? So he's telling on himself plainly that what he's saying is inaccurate because he can't prove it. Simple as that. All right? Now, he claimed that the Septuagint was only the first 5 books, which, again, it seemed that he doesn't know Torah. He don't know the Old Testament plainly. It's clearly. Because he thinks that when it says Torah, it only means the first 5 books. Torah means the instructions. You don't find instructions only in the first 5 books. The instructions in the prophets too. It is in Psalms too. You find instructions all over the Old Testament. Okay? Our for those that believe in the Messiah of the first century, he tells us in the book of St. John's, he says, it is written in your Torah, in your law, that ye are gods. And he's quoting from Psalms. He's letting us know that, hey, Torah, Psalms as well. It's there as well. Okay? And listen, you can even Zion Lex, who knows more Hebrew than Eylon, admits that Torah is not just the first 5 books. Even he admits this. Even he knows this as well. Okay? That when the Messiah said that, he agreed that that's correct. That Torah does not just mean the first 5 books. So when it says that the Septuagint was translated from the law, it is not just speaking of the first 5 books. Clearly, Eylon, because Eylon really don't know Torah. He think he do, but again, he does not. Okay? Again, Eylon, Torah is not just the first 5 books. Okay? Look it up for yourself, because it's just not. Judaism. He's basically standing on these phony rabbis here today that are not the real Israelites. Because the book plain tells you that the original Israelites of the Bible are people of color. It's not these people here he's talking about, he's trying to stand on. That's Judaism. Judaism is modern-day Phariseeism. The exact same thing that the Messiah was slamming them Pharisees back in the days for in the first century, because they had their own man-made traditions that they added to the Torah, nullifying the Word of God. It's all over the Gospels. He was constantly attacking them and telling them that they was violating the Word of God and making it null and void by their tradition, calling it the traditions of the elders. This is what he is standing on. He's standing on traditions of men, okay, and not commandments of God, which Isaiah clearly talks about them doing this in the book of Isaiah, that they would do this. This is what Eylon is standing on. He is not standing on Torah, because if he did, how can you stand on something or even argue something that is a clear violation of the Word of God? He cannot even defend that. He admits that the text has been changed and it's been corrupted, and that the Masoretes, they're the one that did it. And make it even worse, they preserved it. What kind of sense would that make? You know you have something that's a mistake. Why would you preserve the mistake? Why not correct the mistake and then preserve the accuracy of the text? They're preserving a known mistake. And this is what he's trying to argue tonight, which makes no sense at all whatsoever. If you're dealing with the Word of God or the Spirit of God don't roll with errors. If you know that it is wrong, it tells you that. It tells you that in our New Testament to the brother James. It says, for him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. These dudes are sinning. They know they have a corrupted text, and they preserve it and trying to push it on people like it's the complete Word of God, like Eylon believed it's 99% accurate. That is crazy. He's clearly violating Torah. He's not upholding the Word of God whatsoever. Okay? Again, I think brother, you're trying to attack the one West Hebrew, and again, you don't know enough Paleo Hebrew to be attacking the one West Hebrew. Again, you need to go research the above the line vowel pointings, because I said it, and I know it threw you off guard because you don't know what that even is. It's probably your first time even hearing it. You know what I'm saying? So please go look it up and go research it and understand that the way we're saying the Hebrew with this strong A at the end of the letter is how it was pronounced. That's getting it from the above the line vowel pointing, superlinear vowel pointing. Anyone can Google this, okay, while I'm speaking of it. You can too, Eylon, okay, or afterwards you can. And find out for yourself, because there's a lot here you just don't know. And you're trying to argue something that's clearly a corruption, because the Masoretes themselves admit to this. Okay, please, I think I'm going to leave it there, because I think I've clearly proven my point that the Septuagint is closer to the Dead, or measure up better to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Masoretic text. I've proven it. I'll pull verses to show that the Dead Sea Scrolls and the LXX Septuagint says the same exact thing, and where the Masoretic texts don't say that. I've showed it in a number of places. I've shown this. Not one time, I think, has he ever showed tonight that the Masoretic text says this, and the Dead Sea Scroll says the exact same thing, and the LXX says something different. I don't think not one time, if I remember right, not one time has he ever done that. We're waiting. Okay? And still, even if he does show that, he has to show that that's more than the difference between the LXX and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which he has not shown. And I know we can't, because I went through it myself, and it's just not there. Okay? Because clearly, there is 154 places in the Dead Sea Scrolls that's different from the Masoretic text. 154 places where the text and the verse is completely different, like 3 or 4 words that's different or that's missing from the Masoretic text. That's 154 places. You can Google this, as a matter of fact. 154 places where the Dead Sea Scrolls is identical with the Septuagint against the Masoretic text. You can Google it. It'll come up. You can just go through all of them and see for yourself. And I heard the bell, and I will leave it with that. Shalom.
You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, family. Hopefully you're taking down your notes. Again, that number is 319-527-6239. To go already on the phone line, simply press number 1. We'll add you in later on. Hear from the people on the public Q&A portion of the show. Again, the number to call in is 319-527-6239. You can call in via phone, Skype. You can call in via Google Voice. We would like to hear from you. All right, so let's go to Eylon, and with this final rebuttal, part of this debate, that will be the cross-examination. Eylon, you can go ahead.
It's obvious that the burden of proof is actually on Ahmayan and not myself. Because if you're dealing with a translation of a translation of a translation, you have to show that the translation translates the way that you say it does. All you have quoted tonight was nothing but English. I've shown sources, I've given quotations from reputable scholars on both sides of the issues who were actually there. And as far as this Cowabunga Hebrew that you're talking about, again, you did not quote any verse in this pseudo language that you're trying to prop up. You haven't quoted anything. So it would have been nice if what you would have done would be like, okay, Hebrew says this, Greek says that, and translate it, but you don't know either one of those languages. So you lose on that count. Because if you cannot read the Greek yourself, if you cannot read the Hebrew yourself, who are you to even challenge someone who actually can read Hebrew to a debate like this? And you invoke the names of certain pseudo scholars and things of that nature. It is the accepted opinion and the accepted stance that the Torah or instructions is the first 5 books. And you're not going to wiggle your way out of the idea that the Septuagint, the original Targum Shiv'im, is lost, and we do not have it today. In fact, Jerome, who is a primary translator of the Latin Vulgate, concedes that in his day there were at least 3 variant Greek translations of the Christian Old Testament Bible. This is like the 4th and 5th century. The addition of the 3rd century, the Christian theologian Origen, as well as the Egyptian recension of Hysicius and the Syrian recension of Lucian, and I quote, which you didn't quote nothing today. Now, in fact, when different versions are held by a variety of regions, and this genuine and ancient translation is corrupted and violated, you have considered our opinion either to judge which of the many is the true one, or to put together new work with old work, and shutting off to the Jews, as it is said, a horn to pierce the eyes. The region of Alexandria and Egypt praises in their 70, talking about the Septuagint, the authority of Hysicius. The region of Constantinople to Antioch approves the version of Lucian the martyr. In the middle between these provinces, the people of Palestine read the books which have been labored over by Origen, Eusebius, and Pamphilus published, and all the world contends among them with this threefold variety. And Origen certainly not only put together the text of four editions, writing the words into a single row so that one regularly differing may be compared to the others, agreeing among themselves. So in essence, there were numerous Greek renditions of the Hebrew Scriptures that were revised and edited by Christian hands. All Septuagints in our hands today are derived from the revisions of Hysicius, as well as the Christian theologians Origen and Lucian. Yehudi people never use the Septuagint in their worship or religious studies because it is recognized as a corrupt text. Why? Because Gentiles are not authorized to translate any Hebrew scripture ever. Koine Greek will never be superior to Hebrew. And the Creator never spoke in Greek to the nation of Israel through any prophet at any time. No one in the history of Israel has ever used a Greek Torah scroll for any worship service. Plus, the Dead Sea Scrolls already prove that we preserve the consonantal text of the Hebrew, and we have plenty of scholars agreeing with me in that. It's amazing, really, because my opponent has absolutely no issues with how the Greek language was altered and tainted, but he relies on the Greeks more than the culture and people he claims to be a part of. How in the world can you be a Hebrew, Israelite, or a Jew and quote the Greek, but not only that, a translation of the Greek, which isn't even the original Septuagint? Regardless, none of these Messianic teachers can actually speak any one of these languages. Now, the only reason we can translate the Dead Sea Scrolls is because we have a tradition, a Masorah, of preserving Hebrew throughout the Yehudi diaspora, orally and through works such as the Mishnah Talmud and the Masoretic text. The word Septuagint comes from the Latin word Septutina. Septutina. It's not even a Greek word. This should tell you right away that there's something seriously wrong. How can you call a Greek book by a Latin name? Now, it's obvious the word Septuagint never appears in the Greek or Aramaic New Testaments because they're not written in Latin. The best conclusion that we can come to with all the evidence given tonight is that the Septuagint was translated from the Latin Vulgate and was propped up as the scriptures of old, which we all know too well. Christendom, is notorious for spreading falsehoods throughout time. That includes Messianic New Testament and everything else. Remember, the original Targum Shivim, translation of the 70, was only in the first 5 books with added commentary. According to multiple historical accounts from multiple Yehudi and Gentile sources, this commentary was lost and the original Septuagint was lost as well. And with that, I think it's time for y'all to come back to the God of Israel in Lashon Kodesh, the holy tongue of Ivrit or Hebrew. And the following recording is the close example that we have to original Middle Eastern dialect, which is still being spoken today.
وهايوها الزبون هو إلا أشار أولا في مصوقا أيام على نبوضقا وشنتم لبناقا ودفرقاقا فشن تقاب بيناقا وبلغ تقاب الدارا وبشقدقا وقوماقا وبشركم لأذعل يداقا وهيولا بالكفر العيناقا وبتكفر عن مجوز السيطاقا وبشبراقا.
And with that, I yield my time.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right, family. Well, let's get the cross-examination part of this debate. And like I said, both parties have questions to each other. We're going to start off with Ahmayan, who's going to ask Eylon some questions. Eylon, I have 1 minute to answer the question. Once that 1 minute mark is here, you're going to hear this sound. All right, once you hear that sound, then it's time for the next question. Ahmayan also can do a quick response, brief rebuttal, but he really has to go back to the next question. So that's how we're going to do it, and vice versa. So we're going to start off, like I said, with Ahmayan asking questions to Eylon. He only has 1 minute to answer each question. Well, let's get this going. All right, let's see. Ahmayan, you can start.
All right, thank you, Sal. That nonsense you played just now, that sound like they were sacrificing a child. After they killed him, they would start chanting over the child. That's what that sound like. Hebrews don't do nothing like that. That's garbage. My first question to you, brother, is original Hebrew pictographic?
Original Hebrew is what we know is the Paleo Hebrew. That's the Katav Ivrit. What you're talking about, a pictographic, that's Proto-Canaanite.
Okay, so Hebrew's not, so original Hebrew's not pictographic? I mean, so you're saying yes or no? Let me put it in a yes or no question. Is original Hebrew pictographic? Yes or no?
No, originally Hebrew is what we know as the Paleo Hebrew. What you're talking about, the pictographic with the oxhead and everything else, that's Proto-Canaanite. And Hebrew does descend from that. I do concede that Hebrew descends from the Proto-Canaanite script.
Okay. Okay. Again, see, you don't know Hebrew again. Okay. Anyone can go get a book called "The World's Oldest Alphabet" by Douglas Petrovich, and it proved that the oldest language is Hebrew and it's pictographic. My next question to you: did the Masoretes change God's name in the script?
No, they did not. They did not change the Most High's name. The consonantal text remains the same. The Yod He Wah He is still there. The only difference is the vowel pointings in the Masoretic text. But when you go up to read a Torah scroll in the Shabbat, for instance, there are no vowel pointings there whatsoever. So therefore, you have to supply from memory through tradition that was passed down what those vowels are. The Masoretic text simply preserves how we would have done that in our tradition.
In the Dead Sea Scrolls of the exact script that you're speaking of, this is Aramaic script, the ones found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, is it not true that in the Dead Sea Scrolls of the Aramaic script, they preserve God's name in the Paleo Hebrew?
I understand that there are some scrolls that are full Paleo. You'd have to direct me to that particular scroll. There was hundreds of scrolls found. I'm not sure exactly which one you're talking about. That it's mainly a Shuri script, and then the Most High's name appears. I'd like to see that. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. I haven't seen that particular script before, but I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I don't think that they changed that intentionally, besides to make the text standardized, which, like for instance, the scroll of Esther was not included in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, we don't see the Most High's name, but there's a lot of scribble issues with certain scrolls of Esther and stuff like that. But all the scrolls of Esther that we have are in Assyrian script. So I guess that's my answer. If you want me to. Unless you want to clarify the question a little bit more.
I'll move on. Is the Masoretic, because you talked about the Septuagint being a copy of a copy of a copy. Is the Masoretic text the original Hebrew Old Testament?
The Masoretic text is the Ashuri script, which again is a transliteration of the original Paleo Hebrew script, because before the prophet Azra, we had multiple differences. We had Paleo script, we had Ashuri script, and all the prophet did, which the Torah says you're supposed to listen to the prophets. All the prophet Ezra did was standardize the text for ease of reading for the nation.
Okay, so yes or no, is the Masoretic text, because again, you was attacking the Septuagint, saying that we don't have the original Septuagint, and I agree with you. We don't have the original, and I'm saying about your text too as well, that's not the original, but I want to hear from you. I'm asking you yes or no, is the Masoretic text the original Old Testament, the original Hebrew document?
It's not the original Paleo Hebrew, but as far as the consonantal text is concerned, if we were to put the Aleph, for instance, from the Paleo Hebrew next to the Aleph of the Assyrian Hebrew, they would match up 100% of the time with those particular scrolls. And obviously we have hundreds of scrolls as well in the square script. The consonantal text matches up most of the time. Like I said, in my assertion, 99% of the time. or nearly 100% of the time, minus the vowel pointings.
Okay, he's admitting his assertion, meaning he's guessing, basically.
No,
tonight,
I'm not guessing. I'm not guessing. I'm just my from my research and quoting the scholars that I listed who said nearly identical. Some of them said 100% identical. I've rested on 99%, and I think I defended that quite well.
Okay, brother. Brother, just now you cut me off. It was disrespectful, but I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. In the spirit of Christ, now I'm letting it go. Letting you know, I'm letting it go. Okay? All right. My next question for you, tonight in this debate, did you provide any evidence tonight in this whole debate that proves that the Masoretic text was 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls? I want to see if you're going to be honest. What stuff you brought out tonight, did you provide us with evidence that prove that 99% of the Masoretic text lines up with the Dead Sea Scrolls?
All I can show you tonight was research, and the research aligns with my claim and my assertion. If you don't agree with the research that came from multiple sources, from New Testament believers to Israelis to archaeologists to independent archaeologists, if you don't believe that particular research, that's your own that's your own prerogative. The fact of the matter is that still today, no Yehudim use a Greek Septuagint for any worship services, for any study or anything like that, because it's a corrupted text. As far as the Christian Septuagint is concerned, so there are Torah scrolls that are, or at least Torah books, anyways, in Arabic, Aramaic, which have commentary.
All right. Next question. Okay, brother. Anywhere in the Word of God does He authorize anybody to add anything to it? Because the vowel pointing is in addition to the text. Does the Word of God authorize anyone to add anything to it?
What the Torah is saying is that you cannot add additional commandments. You cannot add additional words. You cannot put additional letters in between the words of the Torah itself. And so what the Masoretes did, instead of adding letters, we just added dots around the words. And as far as adding, for instance, using the Ashuri versus the Paleo, Deuteronomy 17 is very clear that we should listen to the judges. Deuteronomy 18 is very clear that we should listen to the prophets, which Asra, Navi, Allah Shalom, he was not just the prophet, but he was also a judge of Israel at the time. He brought the nation together and standardized what we have today as far as our traditions, how to pronounce the text. And later on, the Masoretes, all they did was preserve what the prophet had set forth.
My last question, I heard the bell, brother. Can you read Paleo Hebrew?
Yes, I can. If I can look at the particular letters, I can make out what it's saying for the most part.
Okay, so then you don't need vowel pointings. You don't need vowel pointings to read it. Then, if you can read Paleo Hebrew, you will need vowel pointings. So then, that's them adding to the text as I brought out earlier. Then, correct?
No, it's not adding, because again, we're talking about transliteration. The Hebrew, when we look at a Hebrew Torah or Masoretic text, all it's telling us, this is a translation of what the Paleo Hebrew would be. So Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz is the same, will be pronounced the same in the Paleo Hebrew as it would in the Ashuri script, because all it is a translation.
That dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All All right, we still in the cross-examination part of this debate. The number is 319-527-6239. Again, if you have any questions later on, press number 1. We'll add to the conversation. By the way, we have like 16 minutes on the air, family. We have 16 minutes on the air. What that means, if you're listening on social media, once that time runs out, the only way you can hear the rest of the show live is by calling in. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. You don't want to miss the public Q&A portion of the show, so make sure you call in before the time runs out. So now we're going to go to Eylon, who's going to ask questions to Ahmayan. And by the way, I heard like a little echo, guys, so if you guys are on speakerphone, maybe you should take it off so we won't have any echo when we get into this cross-examination. All right, so we're going to get this thing started. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. Right after this, we're going to take a 8-minute intermission break, and when we come back, we're going to get into the public Q&A. We're going to hear from you guys. Just press number 1, and we'll go to the audience, hear what you guys got to say. But let's go to the cross-examination. Eylon, you can ask your questions.
Okay, really quickly, how many souls came out of Canaan and went down to Egypt?
According to the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says 75.
It says okay. So this is the issue. The Dead Sea Scrolls don't say that it's 75. The Dead Sea Scrolls says that it's 70. Okay, so in 2 places, the Septuagint gives us 2 different numbers. Okay, Deuteronomy 10 and 22 says it was 70, and Genesis 46 and 27 says it was 75. So which one is it?
It's 75 according to the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls. It says 75.
Okay. The Dead Sea Scrolls don't say that. The Dead Sea Scrolls agree with the Masoretic text that there was only 70 souls that went down. Okay, so I'll go on. Can you at least show us one contradiction in the consonantal text, meaning the letters, between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic text in the Hebrew? Or at least, just read out. You can even just spell out what the letters are. Can you just show us where the differences are?
I was doing it all tonight. I told you that there's a difference when you come to Psalms.
Very
Psalms
quickly. I'm being very, very succinct with you. In Hebrew, can you show us in the Hebrew?
Brother, we on the phone. How am I gonna show you in the Hebrew? We on the phone. We're not on that kind of computer or something where I can pull up the screensaver or something.
You all night you said that you speak a version of Hebrew, so I would like to see, even if it's Bob, Cha, whatever, where in the Hebrew are these inconsistencies? Can you just show us 2 verses that we can compare that you can spell out?
Brother, you keep saying showing you. You want me to speak it to you in Hebrew?
What verse? I gave you Deuteronomy. And and Genesis that were different in the English translation. Can you read for us, or just spell out where a contradiction is between the Masoretic text and the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Brother, I told it to you in English. I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and have to go through. I don't have it in front of me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to have to go and pull it up now in the Paleo Hebrew. That's wasting time.
Okay, it's not wasting time. It's showing us that number 1, you don't know Hebrew, and number 2, you don't really have inconsistency that you can show us in the Hebrew. This proves my initial point that you can't do that. So with that, can you at least show us when or date when the Creator began speaking Greek to the nation, and if so, through which prophet?
Brother, again, see, you making these statements that I can't show you or something, and I'm telling you, if we was online, I could show it to you. I can go pull it up, but I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say to you. But
so you're telling me I was able to give sources, but you can't give a date?
He has a minute. Give him his minute.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
My goodness, man, this guy's out of control. The people listening, first of all, brother, the people listening is English. They need to understand what's coming out. Okay, that's first of all. And then it only have a minute, so I got to go pull it up and do all that stuff in a minute. There ain't enough time to do all of that. You know what I'm saying? So you ask me to do something, then the bell's gonna ring on me, which doesn't make any sense, bro. Like that's a question that I can just simply answer in English. It makes some sense. Because I can't get to my answer, I got to go do all of that. That's all I'm saying to you.
Okay, so you can't give us a date when the Most High started speaking to us in Greek, and you can't show us a physical contradiction by just saying, okay, the lamed here or the aleph here is wrong or something. You can't show us either one of those. Let's see.
Brother, the Most High.
I'm gonna ask one
once he.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me get this question out. Let alone get this question out. Get along.
Okay. My next question then is: does the New Testament quote from the Septuagint? Yes or no?
The quotation there is in most places is identical. I can't say for sure that they was using the Septuagint script, but when you look at it, the quotation is identical in many places.
Okay, cool. So let's go here together, if you can. Are you able to bring up Matthew 2:23?
Go ahead, read it, brother. What are you getting at? Go ahead and read it.
Okay, Matthew 2:23. I'll get it. I'm going to read from the King James. Is that okay?
No problem. Go
Is
ahead.
that okay? Okay.
Hey, go ahead.
So it says, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. So if the New Testament is quoting the Septuagint, can you show me where this prophecy is?
Yeah, because I never said that there was quoted from the Septuagint. I said when you look at it, the quotation in most places is identical. I never said they was quoting from it. But when you get into the Hebrew Matthew, which they have found, the Hebrew Matthew, he's quoting Isaiah chapter 11 verse 1, and I can read it and prove it. That's what he was actually quoting. That's what it says there. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 1.
And this is from the Septuagint?
This is from the Hebrew.
Okay. Let me rephrase my question, or restate it. I want to see whether or not Matthew 2:23 is quoting. You're saying Isaiah 1:1. Can you quote that same verse from the Septuagint, please?
No, bro, I can't. Matthew is quoting. He's quoting the Hebrew text.
Oh, okay. So can you read us the Hebrew then?
He's quoting Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1, and it says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch," which this Hebrew word here is netzer, a netzer. It's a netzer, shall grow out of his roots. So he's the Messiah is a netzer. Is in the Hebrew Matthew says it's a netzer, not Nazarene. That's from a corrupted translation of a Greek text that they misunderstood, that they put Nazarene there, but the Hebrew Matthew corrects that and show you that it's speaking of a netzer. He's a netzer. That's why he was brought up in Nazareth. Branch. Nazareth means branch town, because he's a branch of the line of David. That's what he was quoting.
All right, next question.
Okay, so would you say, in your observance, are people supposed to follow the Hebrew New Testament and the Greek Septuagint in order to gain a full understanding?
No, people should do comparative manuscript, comparative textual criticism, and they have the spirit, by believing in the Messiah of the first century, have the Spirit of God guide them into all truth. As it tells us, he shall send us a comforter, and he's going to guide you into all truth. Have the Spirit do it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this one more time. Is there any text, because again, you quoted, you said one word in Hebrew, which is great, but the title of the debate is about the Greek Septuagint. So is there any Greek at all that you can quote? Is there any text that you can compare to with the Masoretic text to show us, to prove to us that there is an actual physical contradiction in the languages that we're talking about? Not English, because we can translate English any type of way we want. What issues are there between the actual Greek and the actual Hebrew that make the Septuagint so much better?
But we're all dealing with a translation. What you dealing with is not original Hebrew. It's a translation. And you talking about translating stuff that's going off into English. You have not refuted the verses that I brought out in English that they was incorrect in the Hebrew. You have not done that.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
All right. We are back once again. This Debate Talk Free Radio. We're in the overtime part of the show. And we appreciate those people on social media that called in. They hear the rest of the entire show. So once again, if you have any questions or comments, simply press number 1 and we'll add you in the conversation. It's public Q&A time. So again, we open up the floor to hear from the listening audience. So let's go to the first caller. Let's go to 224. You're live.
Hey, shalom, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Awesome. So I guess I kind of have a question that's kind of on topic, but kind of off topic. It's coming from the Septuagint, and if I'm not mistaken, one gentleman, Eylon, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but he had said something about there not being notes inside of the Septuagint. And, I mean, maybe, I'm not 100% familiar with the Septuagint. I'm just now getting familiar, but if I'm not mistaken, there was a note and at the end of the book of Job, it says that it says that this man is described in the Syriac book as living in the land of Osis on the borders of Idumea in Arabia, and his name before was Jobab, and having taken an Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name was Enon, and he himself was the son of his father Zair, one of the sons of Esau. So it seems like there's a commentary on the end of the book of Job in the Septuagint that suggests that Job was an Edomite. So if both of the brothers could comment on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Eylon, you want to start? Go ahead, Eylon.
Yeah, I'm just getting to the verse really quickly. He says, okay, there's a little, it looks like 17 is like really, so okay, it's chapter 42, verse 17 in the Septuagint version. I'm looking at it now. It's very long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Well, I'll read it just so Ahmayan, he probably doesn't have access to it for whatever reason. But I'll do my best to answer the caller's question. It says in verse 17, and Job died an old man full of days, and it is written that he will rise again with those whom the Most High raises up. This man is described in the Syriac book as living in the land of Osis on the borders of Idumea and Arabia, and his name before was Jobab. And having been taken in Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name was Enon, and he himself was the son of his father Zareh, or one of the sons of Esau, and his mother bore Basorah, so that he was the fifth from Abram. And these were the kings who reigned in Edom, which country he also ruled over. First Balak son of Beor, and the name of the city was Nenabah, but after Balak, Yovav, which is called Yov. or Job, after Asam, who was governor of the country of Thaman, and after him Adad and the son of Barad, who destroyed Madamim in the plain of Moab. And the name of his city was Gathayim, and his friends who came to him were Eliphaz of the children of Esau, king of Themanites, Baladad, Sov of the Salhanians, Sophar, king of the Minaeans. So it's very, very long, very, very, very long commentary that doesn't appear in the Masoretic text, and it doesn't, to my knowledge, it does not appear in the Dead Sea Scrolls. However, that the idea that Eov was from Edom is actually comes from the Talmud. So the Talmud agrees with the idea that Eov was an Edomite, and it's very interesting that we have a translation from the Edomites, and they would make this additional note here. Seems to me to be a thing to bolster themselves up. But yeah, the Talmud does state that Eov was an Edomite, as well as stating that where the order of the books go are supposed to go in Hebrew, who wrote each of the books. But also, we know that Moshe, for instance, wrote the book of Eov. So it's very interesting that Moshe would write about an Edomite as part of wisdom literature that was written around the same time the Torah was written. So hopefully that answers your question, and hopefully leads you to more study on this particular topic.
All right, Ahmayan, Dad, Ahmayan.
There's an echo. Okay. That version there of the Septuagint is just from a Syriac translation, and they added that part of Job, that ending there to it, because Job is not an Edomite. That's something that some man added to the text, and again, that's a Syriac. That's from the Syriac version of the Septuagint that he's reading there. That was not in the original Septuagint that was translated, and even the one that we have today doesn't have that in there. That's only comes from, if you go and look at the Syriac version of it. It's clearly from two of the scriptures that the Most High don't like Edom. Actually, none of them. He talks about how he's going to get rid of all of them. But Job, he talks about him being a perfect man, one that fear God and eschew evil. The Edomites, when you read the text, don't fear the Most High. That's why Amalek, who was Edomites, attacked Israel when they came out of Egypt, attacked us, and they killed the one that was in the back of the straggler. They killed them. And it clearly says that Amalek feared not the Most High. But Job says that the book of Job said Job feared the Most High, and Amalek are Edomites. And when you read about them, they don't fear the Most High. The nation don't fear the Most High. The Most High don't like them. It says he loved Jacob and hates Esau. And then it goes along and speaks about his complete nation in Malachi chapter 1, about how you should call them the nation of wickedness, the borderline of wickedness. So that's not consistent with what's spoken of in Job, in the book of Job. So there's no way textually from the script you can surmise that Job is an Edomite from what the Most High speaks about them.
All right, we're in the overtime part of the show, family. Simply press number 1, and we'll add you to the conversation. The number's 319-527-6239. We do have a question on Facebook in a group here. Let me see. It says, let me read this question. Hold on. Let me get to it. It says, good debate, fellas. It's been mentioned several times the importance of knowing the language. And all Hebrew Israelites across the world make it our business to study and understand Hebrew thoroughly. If a person don't know the Hebrew, Are they damned from true understanding of the scriptures? Thanks for the question, Elvin. Let's go to Ahmayan. Go ahead, Ahmayan.
Absolutely not. You're not damned if you don't know no Hebrew. This was kind of the thing that Eylon was trying to insinuate. That if you don't know the Hebrew, then what you're reading in the English, it's wrong, which he cannot prove that at all, because it was Hebrews that was translating the text. The Septuagint was translated from Hebrew into Greek by Hebrews. He was talking about it. So it was constantly Hebrews that was translating the text that spoke Greek. It wasn't Greek taking the Hebrew and translating it into Greek. It was Hebrews that was doing these things, translated into Greek for their people that spoke Greek and Aramaic and a different language. Again, he talked about Ezra and coming in, and then he adopted this Assyrian script. That's not the original Hebrew that we had when we went into Babylon. We had a different script. It was different, clearly. You can read about that in the book of Kings, when Shalmaneser came down and he came to attack, and the people and he came up to one of the king's men, and the king's men told him to speak to us in the Syriac script, because I understand it. Don't speak to me in the Hebrew script for the people on the wall to hear what you're saying. So clearly, right there, we see even going back when we was in our kingdom, when the Assyrians came for us, that we understood the Syriac language, the script he's talking about. We understood it, but we also had our own language, the Hebrew language. But only people of royalty knew the Syriac script, or knew the language, and the other people on the wall, they didn't know it. They just knew Hebrew. But by no means throughout the text does it says anything about people being condemned for not knowing Hebrew. Because if that's the case, that would condemn Eylon, because Eylon is not dealing with the original Hebrew. He's dealing with this Assyrian script, which is clearly not pictographic, and it's not the original Hebrew. So again, by no means speaking a different language is going to condemn you, because God people, as it is today, is speaking probably maybe every language on the earth today. And by no means does it say that he just condemned them just for speaking a different language. It's all about breaking his laws.
All right, let's go to Alone. What say you?
Well, number one, I didn't insinuate anything that anybody should not, or that anybody who doesn't read Hebrew is going to hell. The only book that insinuates this idea that you are damned to go to hell if you sin is the New Testament. Now, the Torah doesn't talk in those terms whatsoever. But what the Torah does say is, these words you shall teach to your children when you lie up and when you go down, or when you wake up and when you go down. I'm going to read it really quickly. Deuteronomy 6, Devarim 6 and 6. It says, and these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them to your children. So it's very clear that these words mean Hebrew. If anything, it's the Shema that one is supposed to teach to their children while they are living. And that is the main commandment. If that's the only Hebrew they learn, that's fine. But that is the essence of the commandment, that at least someone should learn the Shema in Hebrew. And again, going back to this idea of me using the Ashuri script, I'm telling you again, it is a transliteration of what Paleo-Hebrew would have sounded like, to the closest from our tradition. And again, you would not be able to translate it without our tradition. If there was no Yehudim in the world, because all the Christians and New Testament believers were killing us all over the place, if we had died out, which the Most High said that we wouldn't, then you would have no way to translate or even understand any of these texts, or even to come up with this Cowabunga Hebrew that people are using today. But again, I did not insinuate that anybody is damned for not learning Hebrew. But it is a commandment of the Creator to learn some Hebrew. And you better hope that you're right, and you better hope that your teachers know what they're talking about and can actually speak and transliterate and translate the text that they continue to tell you to go to teach whatever doctrine that they're pushing. I yield.
All right. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. All right. Actually, okay, I see somebody else press one. And hold on, let me look through the call. I believe it's the same caller. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, how you doing? I'm sorry. I just asked about the Job and the Septuagint. As far as what Ahmayan said, I cannot find anything about this being a Syriac version. I don't know what you're talking about. I tried looking it up inside the book that I have right here. I looked it up on Google. I don't know what Syriac version you're talking about. So if you could please give me that information. And maybe, give me the link to the Septuagint that I should have bought on Amazon. Thank you.
Okay. That part of that. Okay. First of all, that's nowhere. First of all, that's a comment. That's a commentary, and it's not part of the original book or text or scripture of Job as well. That's not part of it. That's someone add a commentary down there underneath it. So that's clearly not part of the original. The original Hebrew. The original Septuagint clearly doesn't have that part in it. The one that I have doesn't have that in there. I'd have to go into I can find it for you, but I have to go into my notes and then go dig it up and get you the link. If you need like I said, you can if you need the link, you can come to my you can come to my channel and leave me your email address, and then I can send you the information and send you the link for it. I have it right in front of me right now.
What's the name of your
channel? The Way, the Truth, and the Life on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that link in the description box too. So I'm gonna leave it in the description box if anything. All right.
All right. Yeah, I'll check that.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You have any other questions?
It was a great debate. I appreciate it.
No problem. We do have somebody else pressing number one. Like I said, we have people that's checking out the overtime portion of the show. Appreciate you. Just press number one, and we'll bring you in. The number is 319-527. I'm hearing the echo. 319-527-6239. But let's go to the next call. Let's go to 530. You're live. 530.
Yo, what's the word? It's B.A. Ben Abraham out of Sacramento.
Hey, what's up,
I had a question for you. What's going on, Sal? Greetings to the individuals this evening of the debate. Ahmayan, as far as your explanation, as far as when it comes to Job 42 and how that's not in the original Septuagint, can you bring out any scholars, any sources proving that otherwise? Are there any historical sources? Anything?
I'm using the Bible, the text of the Bible. As I brought out earlier, it talks about Amalek or Edomites. It clearly said that they didn't fear the Most High. It tells you that in the Torah. And when the Most High speaks of them in the book of Malachi, he talks about them being the border of wickedness. It says, and the people who the Lord have indignation with forever. It talks about the people, all of them, not just individuals. It says that he hates all of them. So, and then in Obadiah, it talks about at some point that he was going to get rid of them. And in the book of Job, it talks about Job, one that feared God and avoided evil. So it isn't lining up with what the book of Job says about Job versus what the Most High himself said about the nation of Edom, not individual, but what he said about the whole nation of people and how their nation was always attacking us and killed some of us when we came out of the wilderness. And also when we asked them, because they were brothers, can we walk past through their land, they came out with an army to fight us. We told them we just want to walk to your land and go to our land. We won't touch none. If we do, we're going to pay for it. They denied us to even walk to their land and came out with an army to fight us. So clearly they are definitely up against it. Not only if they're opposing Israel like that when we're coming out of Egypt, they're opposing the Most High. So that when you read the text itself, you can see that their actions in the text don't line up with what we're reading about Job in the book of Job. It doesn't line up nowhere there. So, I mean, like I said, I don't have all my notes in front of me to bring out more information, but I do have more information I can bring out. But the text is suggesting that Job couldn't have been an Edomite based on what they spoken of Edomite and what they have been doing.
Are you aware that the book of Job is perhaps one of the oldest books in the scriptures? Are you aware of that?
I've heard people said it before, but I mean, again, you just dealing with people dating stuff.
You know, Ahmayan, do you have a speakerphone? I'm hearing like an echo.
No, I'm not. No, that doesn't me, Sal. That's not me.
All right,
okay, that was probably that's me. I'm on my phone now. I'm off the speaker.
Okay.
You made a claim that the commentary or the in Job 42, that's a commentary, and that was added from some other translation. When you make that claim, you're in a debate, and you pretty much just said that was added, and you have no proof, you have no sources, no historical sources proving that otherwise.
We have the Septuagint that we have today don't have that in there. And like I said, I told the elder brother once he hit me, once he get at me on my channel, I'm gonna send him the information to show that is a Syriac translation of the Septuagint. That's not the Septuagint that was translated from the elders that came down and translated it from Hebrew into Greek. That was not in there. Like I said, I have the information. I can shoot it to him if you wanted to. Again, you can get the link, leave me your email address, and I can shoot you the information too as well. Because I mean, you're actually going against what the Most High Himself is saying about these people. If the Most High God says He hates all of them, because that's what He says, then how can He be saying in Job these things about Job? It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, BA call actually just dropped. His call just dropped, but and he can't call back because it's the overtime part of the show. But we appreciate the question, brother. We appreciate the question. Let's get some feedback from Eylon. Eylon, anything you want to say?
Yeah, definitely. Again, this proves in my line of questioning earlier that Ahmayan was either unprepared or, again, does not have any sources to support a lot of the claims that he's making, and especially if we've got multiple Septuagints running around. This again bolsters my argument that, again, the original Septuagint was lost to history, and if you have it, you're very rich. Seriously, the original Septuagint was burned in a fire, and I forget the exact city at this point. I think it was somewhere in Rome or what have you. But the original one is lost. Again, all those notes and commentaries that would have been in there aren't in any of the Septuagints today. But you know what? The previous caller, if his intention is to learn Greek, great, have fun, go learn Greek. But again, you can't make a textual comparison if you don't know a little bit of Greek. I'm coming from a Hebrew perspective. Ahmayan was supposed to defend the Greek, but he couldn't show us in the Greek the issues between the Hebrew and the Greek or anything. And again, it just shows being unprepared. But the caller just called in. Again, I'll give you a source for this idea that Iyov, or the book of Iyov, is one of the oldest books that we have. The reason being is because the Hebrew is very archaic and it's very similar to the language of the Torah. So in the Talmud, in Bava Batra 14b, it's a Bava Batra 14b, at the end of the page, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu Alav Shalom wrote his own book, the Torah, and a portion of Malam in the Torah, and the book of Iyov. So here's a source telling us that Iyov is along the same timeline as the Torah itself. So again, I have a source that I can show you this, whereas Ahmayan has not produced any sources all night. He's going off just the text, which is fine. You know, there's people who are just solo sola scriptura, that's fine, but you have to be able to, if you're talking about language, you have to know something about the language, something about the history, or at least give us sources. Don't tell us that you're going to go back and get it later. But don't tell us that I don't have it in front of me. You don't have the Bible in front of you. You don't have the scriptures. You're not able to go to the Septuagint and show us. That's being unprepared, and that's being disingenuous, or you don't have a valid point to make.
All right, we have about 35 minutes on the air still. All right, once again, we have a lot of callers on the phone line. We appreciate it. It's press number 1 if you have any questions or comments. We do have a caller, press number 1. Let's go to that caller. 916, you are live.
Shalom, Sal. Shalom, Eylon. Shalom, Ahmayan. This is Sister Ashanti.
Hey, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. I was listening when BA called. Of course, I was listening for a little while. But I do want to possibly add to what BA maybe wanted to ask, because I have a question too. Before I do ask the question, I do want to say, Eylon, I do appreciate you saying with a credible source that Job is one of the oldest books in the Tanakh. Thank you so very much. And you definitely confirmed BA's point he was trying to make. I do want to ask you, Eylon, for very good reason, because you're presenting a better argument, because you're bringing proper sources, proper evidence, and you're following a proper protocol when it comes to a debate. So, can you give from the text either the Septuagint or the Tanakh, as far as Hebrew is concerned? Hebrew or Greek, I don't mind, because I'm learning a little bit of biblical Greek myself. Can you give from the text or from a source pointing that Job was an Edomite? Now, the reason why I'm asking that is because I do agree that Job was an Edomite from the actual text. I don't see where, just because the Most High has a hostility towards someone who constantly rejects him. You know, I don't see where someone is not their particular nationality because of their actions. You know, you can do something bad, but that does not discredit you from having the nationality, you know. So I would love for you to, you know, just for the audience out here, please point in the text in Job where Job is an Edomite. And thank you so much. Shalom, shalom.
Yes, ma'am. Well, the text itself doesn't say that. Doesn't say that he's an Edomite, and I appreciate your candor, and I appreciate you being civil. I know sometimes I get heated in debate, and I do apologize if I didn't always follow protocol. I try to do my best with that. But what the Torah does say, in talking about the judges of whatever dispensation of time that we find ourselves in, if you go to Deuteronomy 17 and 8, says, if there arise a matter too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy in thy gates, which right now the controversy is whether or not Job was an Edomite, you shall arise and get up into the place where the Most High shall choose. You should come up to the priests and the Levites, to the judge that be in those days, and inquire. They shall show you the sentence of judgment, and you shall do according to the sentence which of that place which the Most High shall choose for you, and that you shall observe to do all that they inform you. According to the sentence of the law, which in Hebrew it says al pi haTorah. Colloquially today we say Torah sheba'al peh. So upon the mouth of the Torah, or upon the oral Torah that they tell you, that is what you should do. So also in the Talmud itself, it goes in to explain some of these characters who wrote the books. Also, you're going to get Midrashim, folklore of our tradition, where that comes from. So you already agreeing that Eov was an Edomite comes from Torah Sheba'al Peh. It comes from our oral tradition, which the Masoretes used our oral tradition in order to preserve the text with their vowel pointings and things of that nature. So thanks for the call, and that's where you would find the rest of your answer.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, the number is 319-527-6239. We only have about 32 minutes on the air. Actually, we're going to pretty much, if anyone wants to press number one, we're going to pretty much wrap it up. What I'm going to do, I'm going to let you guys dialogue for a little while and until the next person press number one. And if not, we'll just go into the final statements. All right? So, Ahmayan, you can start it. Go ahead.
Sal, I didn't get a chance to respond to that last thing. I didn't get a chance to speak on it.
You can respond. You got it.
Okay. This guy's talking about the Talmud. The Talmud is commentary. He's speaking of he's pulling the source he's speaking of is commentary. And she says that he's making a better argument because he pulled a source that's commentary. And I'm reading the text itself. The text itself nowhere says that Job's an Edomite. They're going and reading some commentary and said they believe the commentary over the text itself. Because the text doesn't say that nowhere. Then after that, then they're dismissing what God say about these people. They're doing all of that just to try to hold on to a point from commentary. Eylon himself called it an oral tradition. That's man-made. That's all man-made stuff. That's what the Messiah constantly was attacking the Pharisees for their oral man-made traditions. He's constantly doing that. And the sister, and I get the sister claim to believe in the Messiah, and she's going with commentary. How is he presenting a better argument than me when I'm reading the Masoretic text and it's saying something different than the Dead Sea Scrolls that predates it? That they have vowel pointings in it, that he admits that it's an addition, that even the script of the Assyrian script that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they preserved the Most High name in there in Paleo-Hebrew. This is facts. Anybody can look that up. How is he making a better? That's just bias. That's someone that's just making a commentary on bias. Like I said, any one of you that want to debate if Job's an Edomite, you can set it up. Because you're going to lose. I know already you're going to lose. What I have on it, you're going to lose. Okay? Like I said, I called Josh out on it. He don't want to do it. Any one of you that's listening that want to debate if Job's an Edomite, any one of you want to come do it, set it up because you're going to lose. Facts. I guarantee you're going to lose. I'm going to use the word of God to prove you wrong, not commentary. Let's be clear. There's a difference here between the word of God and commentary of men. The Talmud is commentary of men that don't even believe in the Messiah, don't have the Spirit of God dealing with them. That's a bunch of garbage over there. That shouldn't even be considered a source. That's crap. And I'm going to leave it there.
We do have a caller pressing number one. Like I said, this is your time, family. You want to press number one, you can. We're going to pretty much wrap it up in a few. Time is winding down. Let's go to 720. You're live.
Shalom, Sal. Shalom, Ahmayan. Shalom, Eylon. All praise to the Most High. This is Davon.
What's
good?
Shalom.
Shalom. I got a couple of statements dealing with the Edomite situation. We know in Deuteronomy 23:7 says you should not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. Now, we know the Most High did have trouble with the Edomites dealing with Amalek and Esau, but we know Doeg served in the military under Saul. He was an Edomite. And according to, like Eylon brought out earlier, the Talmud, Obadiah was a convert from Edom and was actually a prophet of Israel. So we know that there's plenty of Canaanites. Uriah the Hittite, right, was a Canaanite. Hittites are Canaanites, and they also served in the army and the military. We know Israelites married Canaanites, whom the Most High said to destroy them too. So the Most High said there should not, that the Canaanites turn your heart from the Most High, Deuteronomy chapter 7. But those who keep the Most High's law and want to convert, the Most High doesn't have problems with those. So just because he has a problem with Edom and Amalek doesn't mean nobody can be, there's no problem with Job being an Edomite, whether you accept that he was an Edomite or not. So what? In Job 22 and 22, it says to lay up the Torah in your heart and the words of the Most High in your heart. So there's no problem with anybody being from the nation of Edom if you accept the Most High. So that's a problem right there. But I want to dealing with the actual topic at hand. Ahmayan in Luke 4, chapter 17 through 21. Is Jesus quoting from the Masoretic text, or from the Dead, or from the Septuagint? Hello?
Yeah, your line is open, Ahmayan. Go ahead, Ahmayan.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what he was. I can't say that he was for sure. He was quoting from the Septuagint. He clearly was quoting from some source that goes back to a Hebraic source.
Okay, so he wasn't quoting from the Septuagint. You can't say if he was or not. Well, according to Isaiah 61 from the Dead Sea Scrolls 1Q, it says, and the Lord Yahweh Spirit. I'm just reading with the translation. I know some people disagree with the word Yahweh, Yahuwah. I'm not about to get into the argument on the name. I'm just reading what the text says. The Lord Yahweh's Spirit is on me because Yahweh has anointed me to preach good news to the humble. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and relief to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of Yahweh's favor and the day of the vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn. The Masoretic text. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn. Luke 4:17 through 19. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel of the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. We see in Luke, he adds recovery of sight to the blind. And this was during he went into the synagogue to read, which is in the oral law. That's part of the oral tradition that Eylon brought up earlier. Everybody goes up to read the Torah scrolls on Shabbat. And we can go into, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you brought up Zion Lex earlier. Zion Lex will tell you that Jesus quotes the oral tradition multiple times. He keeps the oral tradition multiple times in the New Testament. Even after his resurrection, it says they went a Sabbath day's journey. Why would it tell us that if they wouldn't observe such a thing? Because they kept to the oral tradition, because you won't find that in the original text of the scrolls of the Hebrew. So as far as the comment that it hasn't really been brought out tonight as far as who quoted from the Septuagint, because you said you can't prove that they was actually quoting from the Septuagint. I just wanted to show in that instance he had to be reading from the Masoretic text or the Hebrew text. And if he's reading from the Hebrew text and not the Greek Septuagint, which I think y'all should be doing if y'all supposed to walk like them. So that's one point to be made. Dealing with the Masoretic text. If the rabbis had the tradition of preserving these things, and Jesus said in Matthew 23 to listen to what the Pharisees say, and today's rabbis would be descendants of those same Pharisees that kept the oral tradition. We should, and Eylon brought it out earlier in Deuteronomy 17, that we got to listen to what the rabbis say in those days, which would be our days, who preserve the tradition. They don't rely on the Greek Septuagint, so why should we? If we're going to go ahead and listen. Because if that's wrong, then you're going to have to tell everybody that the Greek text that they're all reading is wrong, and they should rely on another source. And I'm pretty sure majority of people out there, even if they even have a copy of any type of other translations of the New Testament, they're going off of the Greek text. And earlier you said something was a corruption of the Greek text. I forgot what it was, but you said you're reading a corrupted version. You even called in one of my lessons in Saviors of the Tanakh and said I was reading a corrupted text when I was reading Colossians 1:23. So if we're reading corrupted Greek, then you're going to have to tell everybody they got to put that Greek text down. So, I mean, with that being said, you can respond to that. I don't think I have any more questions. Let me make sure.
Yeah, actually, you kind of run out of time.
Good?
So, yeah, you kind of run out of
go
time.
ahead. I'm good. Y'all go ahead and do your thing. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I appreciate it, though. Appreciate the call. Yeah, you can respond. And after that, we're going to go into the final statements. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Sal. Initially, just talking about the situation with Joe being an Edomite. Like I said, anyone of you want to debate it, we can. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, if you're coming with commentary, that's going to get slammed. All right? So he's talking about Diog being an Edomite. No, brother, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is the Most High said he hates them as a people. That's what it says in Malachi. As a people. That's what he says. And and like I said, they're going to commentary talking about Obadiah is an Edomite. That's a lie. That's you. We're not dealing with the comment. I'm not dealing with the commentary of men. I'm reading it out the text itself. Okay, that's what I'm reading from. Okay, the Messiah was constantly. First of all, he talks about what that Christ says they should listen to the Pharisees, which is a lie, because the Hebrew man.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
All right, Ahmayan, I apologize, man. We're kind of running out of time. I want to make sure you guys have enough time for the final statements. So whatever else you want to say, you can say in your final statements. Once again, I appreciate everybody that called in and everybody that called in for the overtime part of the show. Let's get into this final statement. We still got to go back to Ahmayan anyway. So Ahmayan, go ahead, you can finish up, man. Final statements.
All right. I want to thank the Most High for his knowledge, wisdom, understanding, patience, sending his first begotten son, Mashiach Yahushai, to die for the nation of Israel, bringing us back into the bond of the covenant. Sal, I want to thank you, brother, for opening up your platform, having us on here do this, even do this debate. Thank the brother Eylon for even taking the debate, coming on and presenting his information, his stance. My final thoughts on this is that the brother never proved that the Masoretic text is 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. He made claims. He says that that's his assertion out of his own mouth. So an assertion is not evidence, and it's definitely not fact. When he did quote a percentage, he says 95. Again, it's not 99. So tonight he has not proven what he said out of his own mouth, or even what he stand on. So I don't understand how people are trying to say I'm not ready. I'm not making crazy claims there and can't prove them. He's one making a crazy claim because he didn't prove it tonight. That's for sure. And if you think he did, then he's clearly delusional. And if anyone thinks he did, then they're delusional also. I don't know nothing he said tonight, or even pointed to, or even any source that he even brought up. None of it said in there that the Masoretic text was 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. None of his sources said that. Not one of them said that. It's mostly. That's all he went to close as. That's it. And again, that's subjective. All of that subjective. All the stuff that he brought out trying to make a claim, that's all subjective. But again, he never addressed when I was bringing all these textual, reading the scriptures, how it's different in the Dead Sea Scrolls and it's the same in the Septuagint. He tried to come and attack about some language. I don't know Greek and I don't know Hebrew. We're not up here debating language. We're not debating who knows more Hebrew or who don't know Hebrew. That's a completely different debate. You know what I'm saying? No one was debating that. We were debating is the LXX closer to the Dead Sea Scrolls than the Septuagint. Time frame wise, it's clearly closer. They're both in BC. Okay? Clearly. And textual wise in the text is clearly closer again. And I brought that stuff out, which he can't even refute. Okay? Going back to what Davon Mays is trying to do again, here he comes trying to attack Christ again. You know what I'm saying? I know I've addressed this stuff. I know other people have already addressed this stuff over and over again. Because No one has no original. And I'm not telling nobody to leave what they standing on. My thing was he made a statement that the text he stand on is 99% accurate to the Dead Sea Scroll, which is a lie. Now, if he want to still stand on that, that's on him. Okay? I'm not telling no one to leave no text that they're on. If you want to stand on it, that's fine, but don't be making false statement about what you stand on. Okay? Don't be saying that it's this one, it's not that. Stick to what it is. If it's a corruption, then admit it's a corruption. Don't try to falsify information about it that's not the truth, because that text is by no means 99% accurate with the Dead Sea Scrolls. By no stretch of the imagination is that text nowhere even near that. And again, that's not even Hebrew. Hebrew is pictographic. He's trying to get around that point. If he don't know that, then he don't even know Hebrew to begin with. Okay? That's clear and simple. He's trying to avoid that point. He cannot sit up here and tell me that original Hebrew is not pictographic. Those are facts. Anyone deny that is just naive to the facts. That's all it is. Okay? And again, we are finding the rest of the Hebrew Gospel of Luke. We found portions of it, but we didn't find that part up to chapter 4 of Luke. And when we do find it, I guarantee you it's going to say exactly what the Dead Sea Scroll says, or close to it. We're coming from a Greek translation of copies of copies of copies. I'm not claiming to have no original anything. And I'm not claiming that the Septuagint is 99% accurate to the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm not saying any of that, okay? He's the one making these crazy claims over here that he cannot even prove and try to come attack someone with some language when he doesn't even know that original Hebrew is pictographic. Doesn't even know that or don't want to admit it. And again, for any one of you out there, again, if you want to debate that Job is an Edomite, we can do it. Stop all this stuff you calling in and this and all that. Listen, if you so sure he's an Edomite, then let's debate it. Let's see what you got. And stop, you know what I'm saying, calling up and trying to, ask questions that if you really want to debate it, we can debate it because you're going to lose. Those are facts. The Word of God is going to prove you wrong, okay? And I'll leave it there. Shalom.
All right, so we appreciate you, Ahmayan. Let's go to Eylon. Last words, 7 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. There's a lot of things that I didn't get a chance to commentate on, but it's all good. Really, when I say that the Dead Sea Scrolls are 99% identical with the Masoretic text, I define mostly as 99%, and I define 99% as mostly or nearly. That's my definition. If you can take it or leave it, makes no difference to me. And that's what I personally stand on. And I think I brought out multiple sources, some who said they were identical, which I wasn't prepared to side with that particular argument, that they were identical. And I wasn't prepared to side with people who said they were more than 95%. So, you know what? I think 99% and the majority of the sources that I created, or that I, not created, but that I quoted rather, very much said that they were mostly or nearly identical. So you can search up those sources for yourself and come to your own conclusion. And when it comes to the Masorah, the tradition passed down by the judges, we are supposed to listen to the judges. It's funny because you listen to the prophets, the words of the prophets who were written by men, but for whatever reason you spurn the judges of Israel who have held the nation, have held our traditions together orally, and later wrote them down, because what happened? We went into diaspora. So in order to preserve our ways and the ways of the Most High, our traditions, and how to properly interpret our texts, things had to, oral tradition had to be preserved in order that we did not forget about the Shabbat, that we didn't forget that Shin, Veth, and Tau spell Shabbat. The only way that you can translate the Hebrew text is from the Hebrew people. And in this debate, I mean, there was no sources from the other side given. When pressed with questions, the excuse was, it's not in front of me. I don't have that source. The excuse was, I can't read no Greek. I'm not going to read no Hebrew. That's a cop-out. Okay, so if we're doing textual comparison, you better come to the debate with at least some knowledge of the language you're preparing to defend. So tonight, in summary, I did prove that Koine Greek is not superior to Hebrew. I did prove that the Dead Sea Scrolls prove that we preserve the consonantal text of the Hebrew. I proved that the Creator never spoke in Greek to the nation of Israel through any prophet at any time. I proved that no one in the history of Israel has ever used a Greek Torah scroll for any worship service. I proved that you can open up any Septuagint, which there's multiple that we found out earlier, and in the introduction, it will tell you that it's not the original Septuagint. I proved that the rabbis themselves called that day, the original Septuagint was translated a cursed day and declared a fast day. And I proved that no Hebrews were present at any Roman councils when the Christians put together their Bible. I proved that the so-called Septuagint that we have today does not have any scribbled notes or commentary, which every rabbinical translation has. I'm talking about commentary around the script. The Septuagint we have today changed the order of the books. I also proved the original Mikra was compiled in 450 BCE. Going back to the oral Torah, the Christian God, the Christian Messiah, the Christian rabbi argued that the Pharisees of the day should not broaden their phylacteries in Matthew 23 and 5. Did you not know that phylacteries were discovered in the caves of Qumran with the Dead Sea Scrolls? This, again, bolsters the argument that we have an oral tradition of wearing little boxes on our head and our arm with parchment in them, per our oral Torah. So if you support the Dead Sea Scrolls, you also have to support the oral traditions that come along with it. Lastly, I will leave you with some Hebrew to ponder on for yourself, and to meditate and to think about exactly what we need to do as a nation in order to grow. Moshe commanded us a Torah, the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov, Deuteronomy 33 and 4. And this is the Torah which Moshe set before the children of Israel. Deuteronomy 4 and 44. For I give you good doctrine, forsake not my Torah. Proverbs 4:2. Baruch atah Adonai lamazeni chundaka. Exalted are you, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. Teach me your statutes. וידבר אלוהים את כל הדברים האלה לאמור אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך אשר הוצאתיך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי. And Elohim spoke all these concepts saying, I am Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, your Eloah, who has brought you from the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of slaves. You shall not include any other gods in my presence. Baruch Hashem noten Torah. Baruch Adonai L'Olam Amen Amen Yimloch Adonai L'Olam Amen Amen. Shabbat Shalom Yisrael.
Welcome to the planets of debates. Debate Talk Free Radio.